Well, welcome everyone. Happy Thursday. We're so glad to have you with us and to help us navigate what it looks like for our retailers to be reopening their spaces, as well as thinking today more about some of those tools and resources that are available to our retail spaces and the ways that we can best operationalize workplace safety when it comes to not only the people who are working in our spaces, but consumers coming through. So we'll go ahead and jump right in and get down to that conversation. We know that there are lots of challenges and opportunities to be navigating as folks are considering this. So thank you all for being willing to share some of that experience and those tools and resources. I want to, I want to quickly just, hello, welcome. Go through and introduce everyone who's here today with us. So Catherine Jander-Noah is joining us today. She is Local First Program Manager. Thanks, Catherine, for being here. We have Kyle Zimdar, who is the owner at Frames Unlimited. They have locations based here in Grand Rapids, but also multiple locations throughout Michigan. Thanks, Kyle, for being here. Marissa Burkhorst is also joining us from EcoBuns out in Holland. And then we have two other guests who are not part of our membership, but are joining to help us better understand the resources and tools that are available to our members. So Marta Johnson is joining us from the American Sustainable Business Council. And then we have Sean Egan, who is here from the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. So thank you everyone for being here. Our team knows that this is just a uniquely challenging time and such a busy time for our owners in general as we're navigating what seems to be a constant churn of new information and new things to tackle. So thank you for taking that additional time to be here with us today and to navigate the conversation. I think knowing that everyone's time is limited and that there's so much to discuss, we'll just jump right in. And so today I just want to start by getting some understanding of what our businesses are navigating and the experiences that they're having. So I'm wondering if we could just open it up, Kyle and Marissa, to talk first about what our businesses, are your businesses open right now? And if they, what stages you were in during the stay-at-home order, if you stayed open, if you closed, what the journey was to this moment in time. Kyle, if you want to
Sure.
Go ahead and start for us.
Yep. So we closed a few days before the stay-at-home order was actually executed. Some of our associates were starting to get a little nervous about things. Schools had closed by that point, and we were seeing a significant decrease in our traffic at our stores as well. So we made the decision, to be safe and just be cautious about it, to close. Probably 2 or 3 days, I think, before the actual order was implemented, and then we were completely closed throughout the order in all of our locations from then until she lifted the order. She said retail could open by appointment. We actually have 3 stores in the Cleveland market. They were allowed to open May 12th. So that was a little sooner than Michigan. Gave us a little bit of a head start to kind of see how some things would work out before we opened the Michigan stores. We opened the Michigan stores on the 27th by appointment for the governor's order, and then fully opened on the 4th of June for those orders.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marissa, what does that look like at EcoBuns? What was your store operations during the stay-at-home order, and are you open now?
Yeah, so all of us at EcoBuns, other than my mom, so it's my mom and I that own the store together. We're all moms ourselves, and our kids are fairly involved with the business. Even our store managers and other team members, when school is out, the kids are most often hanging out at the store with us. So when the school shut down, that was when we were first affected the most, because we only have one of us that's not currently taking care of children in school. And then, everyone was scared. It was panicky. And at that point in time, we thought it was only going to be for 2 weeks. And so we ended up shutting down a couple of days before the stay-at-home order actually got put into effect. Because my mom and I also live together, we were able to go into the store and work together. And so we just, throughout the stay-at-home order, we just shortened our hours and did curbside pickup the whole time, because we were essential with at EcoBuns, we do a lot with cloth diapers and with cleaning supplies. And so we were able to stay open, but just at more of like a limited capacity. And then we officially opened Memorial Day weekend. So
nice. And been open since. Nice.
And been open since. Yeah.
Yeah. I do really appreciate, I think it's interesting that you brought up the, we thought it was going to be 2 weeks. I think everyone, as we've been navigating this space, has gone through cycles of understanding of what we're really dealing with. And I think a lot of people had that same kind of understanding of, well, there's no way that this could go 2 weeks or a month or whatever that looks like. And here we are several months in trying to continue to navigate this as we've now better understood the fuller or a fuller picture of what the ramifications are. So I really appreciate that. I think that is just so true about navigating the season. And I think you both mentioned this already to some degree, but there are a number of challenges and opportunities that folks are facing. And so I know, Kyle, you mentioned some fear surrounding what's happening, and to Marissa, as particularly moms who own the space, that being a challenge for the particular time. I'm wondering if you can expand upon that. What other challenges or opportunities did you face during the shelter in place and as we were moving back into reopening?
Sure. I think the challenge during the actual shelter in place, the stay-at-home order, was what you just talked about, the unknown. Whether it's going to be 2 weeks, whether it's going to be 4 weeks, and it just kept getting extended and extended. And so our people are getting anxious. Yeah. We're getting anxious to want to reopen, but also understanding that we're doing this because we're trying to keep the community safe, and that's obviously the most important thing. And then the challenge as we started to get back open, we were not expecting her to say you could be open by appointment. We were either expecting her to say yes, you're open, or no, you're not. So me and the team that manages our website scrambled Memorial Day weekend to get us online scheduling system figured out, and worked real hard to get that done and get that implemented for the week that it was that way. So that was certainly a challenge. Not all of our associates, have company emails, so that was kind of a challenge to communicate with them through the time. We got everybody's email eventually, and then I was sending out, a weekly email to say, hey, here's what we're doing, here's the status. Sometimes it's the same as last week, but we felt it was important to keep them aware of what was going on and what we were doing, trying to secure any grants and funding that we could, searching those out, as well as our process with the Paycheck Protection Program loans and things like that. Just making sure that being very transparent with our people that this is what we're doing, this is how we're gonna try to come back and get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marissa, what did that look like for your space? So you mentioned, right, being able to work with your mom, and am I remembering correctly that you were also open by appointment, or you were doing virtual shopping, right?
Yeah, so we did. Yeah, so during the shelter in place, one of the things that we did, and it just ended up kind of being a perfect storm of things that were already in place at the store that we were able to capitalize on. So we already had the online store, which did make it really easy. We weren't scrambling to, so many other retailers who haven't had an online store or, perhaps a social media presence. We're starting to scramble to get those things into place, and all of a sudden learning these new platforms. And so thankfully we did have that already in place. One new feature that we added is that we did add the ability to text in and schedule a video shop call. So we have an iPad that we keep at the store that we use for like all of our social media posting. So we already have the technology there. We just utilized it in a different way. Our store is super relational. We're a retail store that focuses on baby registry and then kids up to early elementary school. And so the culture of our store is we're people who hug. We're people who listen. We're people who, we have couches because parents will just come and hang out with their kids for the afternoon while they shop and the kids play. And so it was hard and it's been hard with the reopen to put away the toys and to have kids come back in, and we're wearing a mask. And so that looks a little scary to kids. Is it scary for kids to see grownups in masks? Yeah. And you're even like a little bit older. So, it's the babies, especially, who don't understand. And so some of the things that we did during the stay at home order to make our customers feel comfortable then was offering also window shopping, where we literally put like our best selling items in our window, and then kids could come to the store and then they could, you know, shop from the window and they could point out what things that they wanted, and we could pick, you know, and still do a contact free shopping experience even that way. And then the video shopping. And as we reopen, we have a lot of customers who aren't comfortable leaving their house yet. You know, we have a lot of pregnant customers who have to get a COVID test before they give birth. And so they're not wanting to be 10 feet near anybody because they don't want to risk getting COVID right before they deliver. And so we're still doing the video shop calls. We're still doing local delivery. We're still doing shipping, still utilizing a lot of that during the time. You know, I know other businesses who tried to pivot to sell things like hand sanitizer. We've been carrying hand sanitizer for years, and all of a sudden there's so many issues with putting the word hand sanitizer on your website, and websites getting shut down, and different scary things that thankfully we didn't have to navigate that. So that was a huge blessing to do that too. And then again, because all of our team was also homeschooling a couple kids a piece, you know, we are working too. Yeah. A couple of us have 3 kids. I only have 2, but
I have a brother.
Yeah, that's 2 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we are dealing with that as well, of, you know, trying to figure out what works best for the team with all of a sudden they're, you know, working on childcare and homeschooling their children. You know, that played a whole new dynamic into things as well. So now that school is done, I feel like we're all in a much calmer, much better place.
Sure, yeah, able to come back and recenter and refocus. That is a lot of balls to be juggling for sure. I know just personally, right, I have younger siblings and cousins who are younger and still in school, and that is just such a challenge for so many people to navigate, especially working and trying to take care of education. It's huge. Kyle, I know too, even as Marissa was talking about the relational aspects of what it's like to sell or have folks in the store, I know we were chatting earlier about galleries or, you know, art shows and pieces. How has that changed the relationship between your store and the work that you were doing, you know, while things were closed, but as you're reopening?
Yeah, so, you know, Marissa made the point of it being a very relationship-based deal with when they have customers come in. It's almost like their family. They're like, you know, we call them clients rather than customers because we're dealing with them, you know, often, and they come back. And, you know, a lot of times when we frame a piece for people, when they see the finished product, they want to hug us and stuff like that. So it's that same thing. So now we've got an acrylic barrier between us and them during the design counter. We're asking them not to touch our frame and mat samples, which is hard because they're, you know, they want to help design that piece of it too. So that part is a little bit different, and makes it difficult. But as we were talking before we jumped on, you know, we also host art shows, and, you know, our opening receptions, and, you know, usually have 50 to 75 people, you know, seeing a bunch of art and getting close together. We obviously can't do that now. So we're looking at ways to do, you know, Facebook Live or Instagram Live type things so that we can engage our clients that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, to that point, right, we see people on a different spectrum of ability, right, when everything started, whether or not they had some of those mediums in place, Marissa, like you mentioned, and navigating that space. So certainly that's a challenge.
Yeah, and we didn't necessarily have those things. You know, Marissa talked about how they already had the online store. One of the first things when we shut down was we started to look at that process and what we needed to do. And as Marissa pointed out, we were one of those retailers that were kind of scrambling to figure out the best way to do that. It became cumbersome, and to a point where we decided we're going to kind of shelf that. It's still on our list, and you know, in case hopefully there's not another shutdown here in the fall or later. But if there is, then maybe we're a little more prepared for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I will add to that and say that's been like the big conversation recently is now we're open. I mean, I know in Michigan, the gyms were, stop rocking. The gyms, you know, were told that they were going to reopen and then can't. And now the big conversation in retail has been, how do we position ourselves for the fall? Like if this happens again, what practices can we put into place? How can we still serve our customers? Not necessarily like what can we get away with, right? Because those conversations, I think are happening, but from our end, it's more of a, how can we still serve the customers? You know, like Kyle said, with how do we move events that we normally have to a virtual platform while still maintaining that relationship, you know? And I think that's a big thing that Local First stands for, is just that relationship building and a people first economy. How do we keep that in this age of like, oh, stay 6 feet away from me type thing?
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely a tough part to navigate for sure. But I think also you bring up, an interesting point when thinking about what the fall is going to look like and concerns surrounding a second wave, and the ability that we now have to plan and project for that. I mean, hopefully that does not happen, right? But to be more prepared for what that could be. What kind of opportunities do you see available as you're planning for, the near future, or even thinking about contingencies for what if a second wave were to occur?
Well, I think one of the biggest opportunities, and one of the things that I've really we've been evaluating with more scrutiny lately is who we're doing business with from a vendor perspective. We've always been, because of you guys, we've always been, really conscious of who we're doing business with. Trying to keep it local, trying to keep it Michigan based whenever we can. There were some relationships that were more national that didn't do what we wanted them to do, or thought they should do during the shutdown. And so now we need to evaluate that and see who local can help us with certain aspects. Like, for instance, when we were trying to get our PPP loan, we have a large national bank that's our main banker, and it was an absolute nightmare to deal with them. We ended up not getting it through them and got it through United Bank of Michigan, which is obviously a local Grand Rapids bank. So we're very grateful for that. Probably got lucky. It was very stressful that we didn't get it right away, but also kind of lucky that we got it a little bit later, because it was closer to when we reopened, and so we can utilize those funds a little bit better and get the forgiveness that we were hoping for on that loan too.
Yeah.
So that's certainly one aspect of it that helps us, or something we're evaluating for those opportunities. And then, as we were just talking about, looking for ways to be able to serve our customers if we do have to close down again, or schedule by appointment, or whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Marissa, what does that look like for you guys at EcoBuns?
For looking at like planning for the fall.
Yeah,
so
potential opportunities.
Yeah, so we did not get the PPP at all, which, it's hard, but because we were able to still continue operations, and like it's been okay. Looking forward into the fall, a lot of the conversation even involves, what does that look like for our team if we're all homeschooling our kids again in the fall? Are we going to have to set up a classroom in the back that if you're working that day, your kids can virtually learn? I don't know. That probably won't happen as far as like the classroom in the back of the store. But it might for my kids. We'll see. But that's, the demographics of our team members, that's been, I think, even the bigger part of the conversation. We've been looking at, again, continuing just laying that foundation of, when we send out emails, we, making sure that we're reminding people that they still, that they don't have to come into the store to shop, and just laying that foundation of cementing it in people's minds that they can still come in and they can still receive service without actually coming in. They can still shop online, trying to figure out how to move everything virtual. Clearly, I am not that great at Zoom. I have not been good at it. I do think I need to purchase a new computer. So any Local First people want to help me with a new computer purchase, because my home computer just will not connect to Zoom as hard as I try. So then I'm stuck on the phone. But that's okay. That's another topic. But then that's, it too, if we are moving to more technology-based services, a lot of businesses are going to be spending a lot of money on upgrading things, to work more remotely and get things done that way. So those, are big conversations that we're having as far as, to set up that kind of stuff. Different events that we would normally do. If we're in the fall, we're talking Black Friday, we're talking Small Business Saturday. What does a virtual does a virtual small business Saturday look like? So, just in like the retail sphere of things. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, big questions for sure. This is shifting gears a little bit, but I'm thinking too back to some things that you were mentioning earlier as well, considering, Kyle, how people were feeling originally as COVID popped up as a real and true thing that was happening for us and shutting down earlier, to Marissa, what you were mentioning with, many consumers or customers who are coming through your store who are pregnant and have additional concerns. What does it look like for each of your locations or each of your businesses to take some of those additional measures for your employees and your consumers to keep everyone safe?
Yeah, I think it's been challenging, but before we reopened, we came up with policies and procedures, then matched that to what the governor mandated through the order. We've got acrylic barriers, we've got hand sanitizer at every location, every spot within the store that is a high touch point, disinfecting all the time, trying to eliminate sharing of tools. Obviously, we put our frames and stuff together there, so we try not to share tools as much. And then it was just about the communication piece of it. I think, we certainly had several associates that were nervous to come back. And, I think it's just good to have that honest, conversation and listen to them. And if they didn't want to come back, then we deal with that. And I think a lot of people were at ease once they kind of came back and saw what we had done. And, they didn't know what it was going to look like. And then once they saw it, they saw how customers were acting. The vast majority are coming in and being very pleasant. They're all wearing their masks, that type of thing. And so that's put a lot of those people at ease too.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And Marissa, for EcoBuns?
Yeah, I think that Kyle hit the nail on the head right there, talking about communication being important. As a consumer myself, I'm, calling restaurants, or I'm calling a business, or, because I'm not sure it feels like everyone's policy has been within line, but also a little different. So, even when we're making appointments places, it's, can I walk right in, or do I need to wait for someone to come out? And like, we finally got our hair done yesterday, like after, and so it was, that salon was, a stay in your car. There's nobody in the waiting room. They'll come and get us. At the dentist, it was, we could walk up, but they met us at the door, kind of thing. And so just kind of navigating, I think the more that you can share your information, and I think because so many people are just getting like an overwhelming amount of information, also just having the grace that like not everyone is going to read every email that you send out, or not everyone is going to hear every Facebook message, or even if you leave them a voicemail to set up a appointment reminder, just giving the consumers grace too, that they have to navigate 15 different businesses and 50, that they're also supporting, and just being keenly aware. Also, dealing with pregnant moms, the joke is, the pregnancy brain is real, because I guess it's not that much of a joke because it is a thing, and, we just tend to be, juggling so many things at once. And so trying to keep everything consumer friendly to make sure that we're strengthening that relationship, that it's okay, and we're going to support you along those lines of, that kind of thing. So, when, as our team came back, we kind of brought everyone back one at a time as we needed people, to make that we could still maintain social distancing. We moved into a larger store like 4 years ago, and we keep talking about what a blessing this larger store is, because we're able, even just between two people checking out, we can have 2 checkout stations going and still maintaining that social distancing, which has really been great. Our customers tend to fall like in between camps though. We have half of our customers are, we're going to wear masks and we're going to be in there all the time, and we'll come in when we need to. And then we have our other customers who are very much in the camp of masks don't do any good. I don't know why the governor is making us wear these things. If you put up a sign that says that we're going to wear masks, we're not going to come in and shop. So kind of navigating what that looks like for both ends. And that, and that's a hard conversation as a business owner to have, because you want to keep everyone safe, and you also want to make sure that you're, keeping everyone as satisfied as you can. And so I think that's why we're really trying to play hard on make sure that people understand that there are many options. So if this is something that you're not comfortable with yet, then we're still going to allow you to have a shopping experience as close to an in-store experience as what you can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it has been interesting to be in different spaces and see the differences in consumers, right? How folks are approaching what is necessary or precautionary in keeping folks safe. And I'm sure Sean too will later dive into a little bit more about workplace safety in that regard, what's necessary by the state and how folks can continue to provide some additional ways to keep everyone safe, right? Because we can only continue to shop at our locally owned businesses if they remain healthy. So that is as important as keeping our consumers healthy as well. So,
yeah, and we talk about that too, especially being a smaller team, and then my mom and I live together. So if one of us gets it, the other one is going to, at the very least, have to quarantine.
Right.
So then that knocks out our entire leadership team.
Yeah.
And then we have a store manager, which is wonderful, and she's super helpful, but it just gets to the point though where like how many of us have to quarantine before then we just have to close the store,
right?
And I think that's, in the thing like with, and we face different challenges as a smaller team than larger teams face, but with the smaller team, it very much is if one or two of us get knocked out, we're closing the store. Like we have to.
Yeah.
And that's and I think that played a lot into us deciding to close so early the first time as well, not only keeping all of our customers safe, but our team safe as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As a priority. Yeah, that is a really difficult thing to be dealing with. Absolutely.
I wish that there was a handbook on like how to reopen your business after a pandemic.
Right. Well, and you know what? Maybe after this, there very well will be.
Yeah.
It's funny how this is going to be shifting so much of our protocol and procedure, I think, for what we do moving forward. It'll be interesting to see that. But I think one of the important pieces is getting some of this experience out there. We can't create some of those more standardized procedures amongst our colleagues, the business owners, unless we're understanding what each one's uniquely dealing with. So it's great to be hearing about some of those, as hard and as heavy as it is to be hearing some of right now what we're navigating. This is shifting gears a little bit as well, and I think we touched on this earlier too, thinking about the online platforms and different ways to engage consumers. But are there other ways in which you're considering diversifying some of the income streams that are coming to your business? Whether that's looking at, the second wave like we talked about already, or just different things that you're considering during this time as consumers have, less been able to be in the space over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we've already talked about. I actually just saw a text from one of our people who I'm working with internally here to kind of get our online store set up. We're hoping that's going to be our photo frames. We're hoping that's a lot of our original art that we can get on there. There are some platforms for custom framing online. It's not our preference, and we've kind of not wanted to do that because it's such a personal thing, and you want to see the colors and feel the frame and those type of things. But at the same time, it may be necessary, especially if there is another shutdown where we can't be open. So those are the main things that we're trying to do. And to go back a little bit to what Marissa was saying too, some of the challenges we have is our vendors reopen in different capacities too. So two of our main suppliers, we used to get deliveries twice a week. Now they're both down to just once a week. So our supply chain is completely different than what it was before. So we got to manage our expectations with the clients at the counter now. Our turnaround time for framing used to be 2 weeks. We could usually get it done in a week if they needed. Now we're saying, hey, it might be 2.5, 3, just because of when we can get materials. Nothing that's really in our control. And fortunately, our customers have been extremely understanding of that as well. So those are some of the challenges as well that pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think too, as we were navigating or chatting more about that relational aspect, and I think you mentioned this now just too, Kyle, but yeah, how important it is that we talk about buying in our community as a relationship rather than primarily a transaction. And so to be able to come to it from that standpoint, I think is helpful as we navigate And again, Marissa, to your point, like how we have grace for each other as owners and consumers coming into spaces.
And I think we've, excuse me, June has been surprisingly good for us in terms of revenue, people coming in, the traffic in the store. So it's certainly been more significant than we were anticipating. Part of that might be some pent up demand. Part of that might be that people are realizing that just what you said, that they're looking to shop local, they're looking to keep money in the community, support those smaller businesses. So we're appreciative of that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Marissa, I know we, again, covered part of this earlier, but is there anything additional to the concept of diversifying income streams that you wanted to add?
Yeah, so we've definitely been talking about that as a store. So we opened up in 2013, and I would say in 2015 was really the height of the popularity of things like cloth diapers and baby carriers from a local business standpoint. And so we've been joking that it feels like 2015 for us all over again, because all of a sudden people are re-looking for cloth diapers because they can't find disposable diapers in the store. All of a sudden they're looking for baby carriers because they want to keep their babies close to them. They don't want strangers coming up and looking in the car seats. And so it's just items that we considered not carrying anymore. All of a sudden we're like, oh, this is actually the direction that we need to take the store again, because this is where people are going. And then looking into, okay, if we have new families and they don't want to go into a big box store, what items are they going to need that we've never considered like really carrying before? Okay, so maybe that's baby formula, so starting to look into carrying baby food and baby formula and starting to diversify a little bit more into more of like the essentials that if somebody wants to only make one trip out of their house to get for their new babies, what do we need? The other thing that we saw is that preemie clothes. Nobody could get things for a preemie baby. So if you were having a baby in March and the baby came a little sooner, there was nowhere to get any of these supplies because nothing was open or nothing, was available. And, Target was shutting down areas of the store, and some of the other big box stores were shutting down, and you couldn't buy those non-essential items. When you have a, 33-week-old baby, those are kind of essential. And so just kind of looking at how we can serve pockets of the population that were underserved during the crisis, when there were things that these consumers needed. But, and Michigan was hard because we tried to do some advocacy to get items for babies put in some of the stay-at-home orders, and nothing ever panned out. So while other states deemed newborns as an essential, Michigan only deemed pets as essential. So that was kind of a hard, advocacy channel to walk through as well. But kind of just looking at, being more strategic about what new products that we bring in. We had started to go more toys and games, which was nice for the older kids as they were you super bored during quarantine? Yeah. So it was nice for those. But now, as we kind of look back at, moving forward, probably doing still more games and toys if we're all stuck inside the house again. We're stuck inside the house a lot still. Yeah. And just kind of, looking at that. But we actually, all of our classes, we moved virtually and then dropped the charges for them. So we used to, we charge for the classes in store, but as, I get kiddos who pop into classes because I'm doing half of them from home anyways. We're trying to give people value, but also making sure that the classes are worth their time if we're trying to do everything virtual. So we did that, but we also saw then a bigger attendance in the classes. And therefore, we were able to generate more revenue because we were having people come into the classes in the first place.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Kyle and Marissa, for sharing what some of your experience has been. I think as we continue to put this conversation into our blog space so people can come back and refer back to it, that it'll be a really helpful resource. I want to shift gears a little bit now and hear from Marta Johnson at the American Sustainable Business Council more about some of the partnerships that are happening with the states, requirements for safe opening, relief packages that people can consider engaging in. So Marta, would you take it over?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, hello, everybody. To give you a little history on some of the tools that the governor has been working to unlock for small businesses, these might have been things that you've already explored, or these might be new concepts because they were um, not, I wouldn't say hidden on purpose at all, but there were just a flurry of executive orders that happened in March. So one of them that is really important, especially as folks are looking at how to adjust fluctuating operations and pivoting to different revenue streams, is the work share program. And she expanded the ability for people to tap into this. And that means that, essentially, if you have decreased operations in some way, but you still want to retain the great people that you have and make sure that they're kind of, made whole for being able to stay engaged, not have to look for other work, or, at the very least be able to retain their the income that you've come to an agreement on. The workshare program is a way to do that, to be able to reduce folks' hours, but they're able to access and tap into partial, basically like unemployment through that program. And so I think, having increased access to that for various small businesses during the pandemic is going to be a huge resource, especially as we possibly will continue to go through these fluctuations of rising cases. Right now, we have a lot of cases that are, increasing in our state. That's prevented us to move from stage 4 to stage 5. So I think it's good to keep these resources in mind, even if you don't have a need for them right at this moment, but to just get some basic knowledge on what this might look like for your company, so that you can utilize this if it becomes a need in the future. So that's one of the existing ways already that we're really thankful that the governor looked at untapping existing tools, because then you don't have to recreate the wheel. And she did an excellent job with that. And of course, I've heard different stories in terms of accessing the payday protection grant/loans, and there's been a wide variety of experiences of small businesses that have had challenges accessing it, decided not to access it. That's still something that we're looking at continuing to build and maintain that fund with future asks to federal relief packages. We see that as an important resource for small businesses to be able to utilize. And of course, as time continues, looking at different ways in which that can both be accessed and utilized. I think we're learning a lot in terms of what different requirements might not be as possible as we might be reopening and then slowing down a little bit, or reopening and adjusting and figuring out how to be able to be agile and nimble and keep businesses operating and afloat and serving the important role that they have in our communities, but also, able to sustain themselves. So we're working on making sure that that program continues to be resourced, but also advocating for, different necessary administrative rule changes. And that's at the federal level, although most of my work was focused on the state level. In the state, there's a really interesting package that's working through its final negotiations in terms of another $100 million specifically for Michigan businesses for restarting within as the economy is reopening. We're still working on getting details in terms of, if you have applied for PPP, are you able to access these? We know that they really are trying to focus these funds on prioritizing minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses, but not that it excludes others by any means, but just knowing that those have been some of the gaps in accessing, are known gaps in accessing federal resources today. And I think there's been an attempt to try to fill those resource gaps. So that's something that has strong support from the governor and is still being negotiated out within the Michigan House and Senate for final agreement on everything. But that should be another resource package that is coming. The other issue that we're really focused on that that will include to some extent the small business relief from the federal level, is making sure that we're able to fill the state and local gaps that are occurring because of all of the pandemic related disruptions that have been happening, in service of trying to keep ICUs, not overflowing and that sort of thing. So one of the aspects is, the revenue sharing with states and municipalities. There's, across the country, this is a universal issue. It's not specific to any one state, but we are all feeling sometimes even the local impacts of it. It impacts school funding. It impacts the ability for fire service and a wide variety of first responders. And it's a really important community stabilization that we see as important to businesses, because the more that we can stabilize our communities through this really unusual and especially tough time that's showing all sorts of accelerated challenges with all the other social and environmental issues that we have, being able to try to stay in front of this as much as possible and make sure that we're not radically disrupting our school systems more than they already are, or our essential services with fire and other first responders. It's really important to make sure that we use every resource possible. So that's one of the major advocacies that we're doing, and joining forces with a lot of other state leaders, and encourage any small businesses that are able to add their voice. American Sustainable Business Council has lots of ways on their website that you can add your voice in a simple online petition, or even just a simple letter to your to our senators or your congressional representative, and just kind of explain why, as a business owner, you're concerned about this. I think all of these things will help smooth out the disruptions that we've had, and we see them as really important step for this year to move things forward. So on a resource front, Workshare we have a continued effort around additional grants and loans for small businesses, especially, and then also federal funding, resource sharing with state and municipalities. And please contact me if you're facing any specific challenges. We've done a lot of behind the scenes work to assist businesses and connect with different resources, but also, help better inform different processes and procedures, and connect people with that. So if there's any way that we can help, we partner with Local First and some other great partners across the state. So I'm happy to act as a resource connector and advocate for our small businesses.
Thank you so much, Marta. We really appreciate all the work that you're doing. And when this goes onto the Local First blog, we'll make sure to share ways that you can connect with Marta. I also want to turn it back over here to Sean. Sean, who is with the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, was with us here on Tuesday to talk more about what's happening as we're considering workplace safety within the restaurant space, and we'd love to hear more too as we're considering the retail space. So Sean, would you take it over?
Absolutely. I know we got started a couple minutes late, so just hold up the hook that you're gonna when you want me to stop talking, because as you know, I can do it pretty well. I appreciate being back with you today. It was a great discussion on Tuesday. It's been a great discussion today. I'm very thrilled to hear how Kyle and Marissa talk about their operations, recognizing that we have a public health crisis on our hands that is certainly impacting our economy as well as workplace safety. So my role in the Department of Labor normally is the Deputy Director for Labor, and I oversee my OSHA, wage and hour, workers' comp, and the Bureau of Employment Relations. And a few weeks ago, the governor thankfully added another job in addition to that as the Director of COVID Workplace Safety in Michigan. So I'm very excited to be able to reach out and talk with everybody. And a few key things I always want to mention at the outset is that while we have, as we've mentioned, there's a lot of noise about COVID. There's a 24-hour news cycle on every single channel talking about what's happening. Some of the science has remained pretty steady, and that includes social distancing, wearing face coverings, and good hygiene. And as long as we're really focused on some of those areas, we can make this work. And I've been using the phrase, get open, stay open, because these are things that we're going to need to do to make sure that we don't have these fits and starts, that we're able to get open and stay open for the duration. And we're going to be relying on not only you as business owners, but certainly our workers to follow the policies, and hopefully with some encouragement and support from us, our customers, to recognize that they have an obligation in this process. So one of the things you'll hear me say over and over every time you see me, right, Kathleen, is no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. In Executive Order 115, the governor, which is the order that's opening things around the state, has required citizens to wear a facial covering if they go into an enclosed public space. Corresponding to that, the governor also gave businesses the ability, without potential lawsuits, to deny service. Now, I always preface this with, we do not want to create a bigger hazard for managers, owners, or workers with people that are just going to flatly refuse to do this. So we want to be very cautious about it. But I think if we create this mantra, and I believe that nice poster that I've been talking about will be posted today on the website I'm going to mention for use. No shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. Because that, from what the science is telling us, that is the critical component from helping us contain the spread of COVID. And we know it's congregation points, right? Which means a store and a restaurant and beaches, outdoor spaces too. And that's going to be critical for us containing this. So in the department, since the beginning, MIOSHA has been developing tools for every workplace, and we have a specific landing page. It's michigan.gov/COVID workplace safety. If you can't remember that, just Google Michigan COVID workplace safety. It'll get you to the same spot. And we have specific MIOSHA created guidelines for every industry that's been named in an executive order, including retail. A couple of notable things about retail that are different is that you have some square footage limitations. If you are over 50,000 square feet, it's 4 people, including employees, for every 1,000 square feet of floor space. If you're under, it's limited to 25% of whatever the fire marshal told you can be in the store. So, make sure you're keeping that in mind. Other pieces in there are the health screenings, and you have to be doing those for your employees coming into work. You need to be doing them for vendors, customers not as much, but vendors coming in. And DHHS has created a very, very useful app. It's the My Symptoms app. You can find that right on the michigan.gov coronavirus page, that will comply with the health screenings and the executive orders, except for now in the manufacturing space, which we're working on, because that is the only one that actually requires temperature screenings. The other ones make it an optional, if possible, component. So it's just a series of questions. It'll show on there. So the way you do that is the employer goes into the My Symptoms app and you set up your employer account, and you'll get a number. I don't remember how many digits, but you'll get a number. You give that number to your employees and they can connect directly with your account. And then what happens, they fill out the survey, and on their phone it'll say green, you're good, orange, you're not. As long as you're checking that phone when they come in and you just make it a little note that Sean came in, he was green, you will be in compliance with that health screening. And we really see the niche for this in most of your members' space, that small to mid-sized business where you're not going to hire the Cisco's or somebody else to do this for you. And it'll work. It's a good tool. And they're adding some more components to it. Right now, the next day, whoever you designate as the person to get that report gets it. That's why we're saying check their phones right now. We are working on opening that up so that you can see it in real time to make sure that you're good there. We have a hotline I encourage everybody to use. It's 855-SAFE-C19 that goes directly to MIOSHA. It's our own call center. It's our own experts that's available for employers and employees. Any question you have about COVID, it's a specific COVID response line. And if those folks can't help you, they'll get you to the field folks that can. On the business side, if you kind of get stuck, they'll get you over to the consultation team. The consultation team at MIOSHA has been there forever. They are wonderful. You can always request a consultation from MIOSHA, where it may include coming right to your place of work and talking about things that you can do. A lot of it could be over the phone. Highly encourage people to use it. Highly encourage everybody to call that number. And then on the flip side, if employees have questions, they can call too. Same process, but if necessary, that would get them to a complaint rather than a consultation, because that's the way the system works. On our website there too, we do have a link over to the Pure Michigan Business Connect. If you're not familiar with that, it's through the MEDC. and it's intended specifically for COVID-related PPE or other needs with manufacturers right here in Michigan, which I love. If somebody watching has a manufacturing facility, they want to get connected, they can do that too through that Pure Michigan Business Connect. But that includes face coverings, hand sanitizer, you name it. Michigan manufacturers, just like they always do, turn that corner quickly and are making all those things that we need. So, and lastly, what I always remind employers specifically is, and I was glad to hear it here, keep in mind that because you might be ready to open doesn't mean your workers are ready to be back. Some of that might just be fear because there's a lot of noise around COVID. So hearing Kyle talk about engaging with the employees to talk about what they're doing is critical. And in all of my experience working in the labor management field, communication is where it always breaks down. So hearing that is wonderful, Kyle. Good job. And I encourage every employer to have that dialogue if it's a safety concern. Also recognize that a lot of folks will have underlying health conditions, which makes it dangerous potentially for them to be in the workplace. A lot of childcare issues right now. I know school's out and Marissa is already dealing with, the kids can't be in the store all the time, but people are still going to have childcare issues, pregnancies and other things, and they'll still qualify for unemployment benefits. But as employers, I'd always encourage you to make sure you're communicating and helping people get back into the workplace. And then, as Marta mentioned, I won't get too detailed into the work-share program because she already did, but as far as enticing people to get back into the workplace, that is a hugely valuable tool. As long as that PUA benefit continues, which it should through pretty much July, that's the tool you want to look at. But we're updating resources all the time. I always want to hear back on what's happening on the ground. And I'm going to keep saying it until everybody's doing it, but no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. And I think that we can really get open and stay open.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marta and Sean, for helping us to navigate what's available to our business owners. I think, as we've mentioned prior on this call too, there's just so much information out there. Consumers are overloaded with information, owners are overloaded with information. And so it's helpful to know where we need to drill down to get the best resources for our businesses. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, can I say that the MyOSHA website was super helpful in the reopening because there's literally a retailer checklist. And so if you're a retail, you can go through and it tells you what signs you need to have up. It tells you different wording. So we were able to just using Canva, which is a free software or graphic design website. We were able to use Canva and recreate those signs with our brand on them. So it makes it look a little more fresh. I think MyOSHA though has ones that you can just print off. We wanted ours to be more brand. But super helpful with, having the COVID specialist on staff and having what paperwork you need to have to be in compliance. Our time clock software that we use, our scheduling app, actually shifted to asking those same questions too. So that was super helpful because now all we have to do is when people go to clock in, they're being asked those questions to keep within that compliancy. And so that would be the other thing that I would encourage is check with what you already have available that you might be able to work with what you already have. But that retailer checklist was super helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that too. That's so great. Well, I just want to thank everyone again for making some time. We know that this is really a very busy season, and we're going to make this information available again at our localfirst.com/blog. So we'll have that up for everyone to be able to access. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day.